Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live. My name is Andjela, and I'm marketing manager at Fiscal Solutions. Today with me is our CEO of Fiscal Solutions, Darko Pavić. Welcome, Darko.
Thank you, Angela. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you again.
We are here today to talk about something really important for us as a company, our new manifesto. Most companies have a mission statement, usually just a sentence or two on a website, but we wanted to go further than that. So today we'll cover a few key points together. What is manifesto, understanding its role and its meaning, why did we define it, the reasons behind creating one for our company, what's inside our manifesto. We'll walk through all the points in detail. And what does it mean for the future of Fiscal Solutions? Darko will explain its impact on our strategy and the direction ahead. And of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts and questions in the comments. We'll go through them at the end of today's live. Maybe we can start from the beginning. Maybe it makes sense to start from the basics. Darko, for those who might not be familiar, what exactly is a manifesto, if you could explain us?
Sure. Thank you very much for this nice introduction. So I'm really happy today to talk about this topic because it's not that usual topic that people are usually talking about. Mostly the companies have a kind of mission and they publish it on their home pages and that's it. And that's fine. That's great. And I think the companies need that. But we wanted to go step forward, let's say, or to move forward and to elevate our business a little bit higher. And that was basically the reason why we were thinking about how to do that. And one of the ideas that we had is actually to write down what we are actually already thinking and doing. And this was the basic idea of the manifesto. And later I will give you more details, of course, what was exactly the point or the idea to create, how to create it and what was the input that we had and so on. But before we do that, let me explain a little bit what is manifesto, because usually people are not dealing with this kind of documents, and in business it's maybe not that common. Manifestos are common in maybe more in the art world, but there are also manifestos in the software environment, and I will give you an example about that as well. But before I go in those details, let me tell you what is actually ChatGPT telling about that. If you ask ChatGPT to explain your manifesto, at least I did that, and the definition that I got was following, and I will read it now. A manifesto is a public declaration of principles, intentions, or beliefs often issued by an individual, group, or organization to outline their goals, values, or vision for change. I like this definition a lot because I think the most important element of this definition is actually the change, because every manifesto has some kind of change in the focus. If we think about manifestos that we can see in the art world, they are always presenting a kind of the change in the art environment. Just think about Bauhaus in Germany or Die Brücke, which are movements in the art. All of them had a kind of manifesto which defined actually what they wanted to change. They were not satisfied with certain points, and that's why they wanted to change something. Mostly in the society or in the art world or whatever. So this is a very good definition. But if we move that into the industries, like, for example, software industry, we can find manifestos in software industries as well. I think the most famous one is the Agile Manifesto, defined, I think, beginning of 2000, maybe 2001 or something like that, by 17 software specialists in that moment, real gurus in the software development. One of them was Kent Beck, who is creator of extreme programming, or Ward Cunningham, who is actually inventor of Wiki, and so on and so on. So really prominent software developers. So they joined their forces, they defined a document which is defining the agile software development. to put the people in the focus, to have a shorter iterations, to make it faster, and so on. So this is the example of manifesto in the industries like we are. And that was actually something that we used to create our own manifesto, which is basically a set of short, punchy statements which are defining your belief. So what do you want, in what you believe, and what do you want to change? And that's exactly the manifesto. So the set of statements which is defining your belief. It's not a business plan. It's a kind of direction star or North Star telling you and everybody who wants to see it what moves you and what motivates you actually.
Okay, thank you for such a great explanation about manifesto. And while a mission describes what we do, a manifesto is about bringing our values to life in practice. So from your perspective, can you describe us what would you say is the essential difference between manifesto and the mission?
First, I have to say that I don't like missions. Why? Because the missions, everybody has a mission, for sure. Whatever you do, you have a mission. You have the reason why you are doing something. But I don't like the marketing part of that. So this means most of the companies in this world have a part of the homepage where they write about their mission. And if you compare all of those missions to each other, you will find out that most of them are very similar to each other. If this is like that, sorry, but we cannot have all of us the same mission. So this is basically the reason why I don't like the missions. But if we analyze them, we can see that they are actually concrete one sentence definitions defining what you are doing, for whom, and why. If we have to define the mission, which is different than all others, for us, it could be something like we help retailers and POS software vendors to simplify fiscalization across the world. This could be a good definition, let's say, for a very simple mission, which explains what we are doing, simplifying the fiscalization. But if you want to do it better, differently, on the higher level, you use manifesto. Manifesto is a short set of beliefs, let's say, and commitments. It's like a promise that we are giving to the market what we want to do, for what we want to fight, like starting the revolution in something, like changing something. So this is manifesto. And if we make it very simple, it could be for us something like we believe compliance should enable innovation. Therefore, we blah, 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 blah. You see? So the difference is manifesto is something like a job description, telling everyone what you want to do and what you are doing and why you are doing that. And manifesto is philosophy behind it. It's partially culture, belief, what motivates you, what moves you. This is manifesto.
Okay, and what do you think, do companies really need a manifesto?
Very honest answer, no. Of course not. At the end, the companies need a good business model. They need, of course, the targets, and they need a good strategies to reach that. Missions is very helpful to do that, of course, and manifestos are also very helpful to do that. Beside reaching the targets, manifesto is also very good for other topics. But basically, the companies don't need that. But it's very good to have it, and it's creating lots of advantages if you have it.
Yeah, so you think that is better to have one?
Definitely.
Yes. Okay.
Maybe just to turn it around, what do you think? Is it possible not to have manifesto?
Yes, I think it's possible, but I think that's.
I don't think so.
But
No,
it's.
why?
I think it's better to have one, but definitely there are companies that don't have.
But I think I think not many companies have it in the written form. But
Yes.
everybody has a philosophy, let's say, what do you want to achieve somehow? And everybody has a kind of feeling if he wants to reach something meaningful and to change the society to be better and, to help the people around him. And those feelings which people have, I think everybody has that and every company has that. But not each company has it in the focus. And not each company is writing it and describing it, let's say, on that way so that everybody can see it transparently.
Yes, definitely. And why did you decide to create Manifesto.
This is a long story. This is a long story. But let me first explain where the manifesto can help, actually, because usually everybody will agree with me that it's good to have one, but if you don't need one, okay, why should I spend the time to make one if I don't need one? So that's why it's maybe good to talk a little bit about that. How can it help, let's say, in doing business better and being better towards people and towards customers and partners and so on? So first, I think it's a tool to help you to align everyone with your direction. So whoever see your manifesto can immediately see what is your philosophy in the life, actually, and what are you fighting for. And if you, as a customer, for example, wants to fight for the same things, then you can find that we are fitting together. So it's a very good to align the strategies with each other. The second big point is competition. It's getting very difficult to differentiate companies between each other because the competition has great products, they have a great processes, they have a sales approaches, marketing as good as we have, as other companies have too. So this means you need to find a way to show your personality as a company and to make it being differentiation point. Not everybody will like you, of course, but then these people know exactly what you are doing and how you are, and then they can go to other companies if they like other companies more. So it's very fair and open, let's say. Then, if we talk about culture of the company, Manifesto is part of the culture. So it's defining partially the culture of the company, but not on the typical way as we know it from the employer branding or internet or whatever, where the culture is making happy hour on the Friday or cooking together. That's nice and that's fine, but this is not the culture that I'm talking about. I'm talking about philosophy of life. What do you want to do in order to create meaningful things, really meaningful things that are changing the society? This is the culture that I'm talking about. If you want to hire the new talents, and everybody wants the new talents, of course, then it's not just important to have the people which have a great talent. It's important to have the people which are fitting from the cultural point of view. And now I mean philosophical point of view. How do you see the life and everything around you? If those people have a talent and fit in that culture, then it's great for both of you. This is the reason why Manifest helps as well, because it's communicate that kind of culture. That's why it's helping you to hire the talents which are fitting into your environment. Then, and now this is maybe one of the most important points. If you have a company like we are, which is actually a smaller company, nevertheless, you have lots of moments where you have to decide something. Do we go left or do we go right? Do we produce or create that product or that product? Sometimes for the people, it's very difficult to decide which side is better. Now, with Manifesto, you can take like a framework and see, is that what I have to decide fitting in one of those points which we have? If yes, perfect, I can easier decide. If no, we have to find a different way. So it's a kind of decision helping tool for everyone in the company. And maybe the last point which I see, or not the last, but almost the last, if you need new idea about new products, about new services, and something what you want to do in your business, you have to find a way how to trigger your fantasy, let's say. And Manifesto is usually defined on that way that if you are reading one of the points, you can imagine immediately what would be the steps that you need to implement in order to have that one point. So this means we are using Manifesto also as a source of ideas for the next products, for the next service or extension of the products, services, new features, and so on. And the last point, I think it's very good for the customers because imagine now that we are working or we want to work with the customer coming from, China, for example. So those companies and those people don't know us. Even if we are present in the internet and even if we have lots of experiences and lots of projects, and they can ask other companies as well, of course, so we have references, but at the end, they don't know us. They don't know what we are promising to do in the next 5 years, 10 years, or whatever. And Manifesto is helping them to see exactly what is the target that we have for what we are fighting also tomorrow. And if they like that, they can join us. If they don't like that, they can go to somewhere else. So they save the time, money, and everything. And we too. So this is basically what defines, let's say, what I think the manifesto is good for. But manifesto has also risks, because if you do that, it's like a promise. And if you don't keep it, you will lose the trust. And if you lose the trust of the customer, you will not win the customers. So this means, it's a black and white at the same time. It's good to have it, but on the other side, we are defining by that frames which are enabling the customers to measure us and our success. Do we keep our promises? Are we really going in that direction? Do we really implement points which we defined on the manifest? Yes or no? You cannot avoid that. This was my first thought. Okay, I can avoid that if I make the manifesto very general. So if it's general, no problem at all. So I can always say, we were thinking a little bit different. You cannot do that, because if it's general, nobody understands it, and the customer or partner or your employees cannot identify with that. And then it's like empty, like nothing, like a sentence, couple of letters somewhere in the internet, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So, okay, so now I think now I can come back to the question, why Manifesto, why we decided to do that. This was the question, right?
Yes.
Sorry for that, but I think it was very important to explain
yes,
a little bit before. Okay, so why Manifesto? Good question. So maybe to start like this. So now I explained why it's good to have Manifesto. I explained what are the benefits basically of that. But all that was not the only reason why we decided to do it. There were basically two targets which we wanted to reach with Manifesto, and they are explaining then also why we did it. So the first one was, we wanted to elevate our company on the higher level. What I mean by that? Usually you can create software products, you can create services, and they are great, and they have one target, to make profits at the end. They are solving the problems and they're making profits, and that's great. And most of the companies are doing that. But me personally and the people around me, we were not satisfied with that. We wanted to create something really, really meaningful. Please don't misunderstand me. I don't think that the good products are not meaningful. They are, of course, because they are solving certain solutions to certain problems. And that's why they're really good. And they're creating profits, feeding the people because of the salaries and so on. But we wanted something else. We wanted products which are changing the industry, which are changing the world, making it better, let's say. And you cannot do that just like that, just with the product. So you needed something more. So this was the reason why we're thinking how to do that on the one side. And on the other side, I will also explain you why we wanted that, because it's also not typical that you want to change the world in the fiscalization. So what can you change there? There is a law and you create the software. It's a typical way of thinking. For that, to explain you what we want to change in the world and how do we want to make the world a little bit better in that area, I have to go more back in the history, let's say. So as I started in fiscalization or in the retail in general, it was end of the 90s, 97, 1998, something like that. Very soon I was responsible for the projects, large projects like for Carrefour, IKEA, and so on. And we faced the problem of the fiscalization. Of course, as soon as you go international, you have the topic fiscalization on your table. So I had to solve that. To be honest, I was not successful. But I was not successful, not because it's technically a complex issue, but I was not successful because in order first to get the information what has to be done, you had to be involved somehow in the local structures. You have to know to which person you have to talk. And even if you knew which person is the responsible for something, you had to know what is this person actually needing. So it was not that clear. You couldn't go to internet and download a document describing what you have to know. It was highly political issue, not just to get the law in the country, but also later to implement it. You had to be involved in the local network of the people, let's say. You had to know exactly who is doing what and why. and what those people really like or not like. For example, it was not possible to pass the certification of your software if you didn't know exactly what was the requirement of the auditor. And the auditor had his own personal agenda and his own requirements, not the law requirements. So this means even if you were the best engineer and best software developer, you were not able to pass the certification if you didn't know what is needed to do with that person. You understand what I mean, I think. So this was end of the 90s, beginning of 2000, so many, many years ago. This was the moment as I decided to change that. I wanted to make the change, to make it less political, let's say, for the retailers and post-software vendors, and to create a kind of protection for them. And I did that by creating my own company. So basically, in that moment, as I decided to change this situation, I created Manifesto, but I didn't write it down. So I decided to change the fiscalization approach. I decided to change how the people locally work with that. And I knew I cannot do it in the country. I cannot go into the country and change suddenly the political structures and people which are involved. I knew that it's not possible, especially if you're living somewhere else. But I knew that I can create something which is getting in between retailers, post-software vendors, and governments. And on that way, I could protect, let's say, the retailers and post-software vendors for getting directly in touch with those political movements in the country. We did that for them, let's say. And by that, they could move faster, let's say, expand faster, without taking care of the political environments in those countries. We did that for them. And how we did that? On one side, for the retailers, we created middleware, which was basically software, which was implementing and still implements all the local fiscal requirements. And we created source of information for those retailers, because you can manipulate, let's say, the local situation only if you don't give the information to the people. If the people don't know what they need to do, you can always say them, but you should do it yellow, not green. And if you ask them why, it's like that. So that was the reason why, and it's still like that. The laws are still very blurry. They are foggy. They are not really concrete, telling you, make the button yellow. And this is opening the situation for interpretations. And interpretation is always a difficult topic. So to make the retailers moving faster, we developed strategy to create a platform where everybody can download the documents, even without knowing, let's say, what is the source in the country, without knowing the people behind and anything. They just download it. They get our documents, which are explaining if the button is yellow or green. They're good to go. So this was the second, let's say, thing that we did in order to change the world. And both topics were successful. We changed it. The middleware changed the industry because there were suddenly other companies doing the same thing, producing great software, great solution for the retailers to make fiscalization easier for them. Regarding information, suddenly there were new companies providing consultancies in order to help the retailers to do it better and easier. So this means in both cases, we created like a new way of dealing with fiscalization, exactly what we had in our head as a manifesto, not written, but in our head. The third element which we did, and this is really new, we did it a couple of days ago, the third problem, which is keeping the people under control, let's say, or making it difficult to implement fiscalization, is the education. Usually, if it's difficult to educate the people, you can manipulate it easier. You understand what I mean? So that's why we had a big issue and big problems. If we have a new people in our teams, we needed 6, 7, 8, even more months to educate those people about the fiscalization. Because there is no school about that. There is no university. There are no books. There is nothing about that. And you had to do it by try and error based on experiences of your partners or connections or whatever. This is the third point that we wanted to change, and we did it now 4 days ago or 5 days ago, we published a book called The Fiscalization Compliance Maturity Model. This book, with 460 pages, is explaining in detail fiscalization, starting with the basics, starting with the words and names like what is fiscal printer, what is fiscal device, what is the difference between software fiscalization and hardware fiscalization, and so on. All the basic things that people need if they are starting in this industry. And it's explaining also advanced topic like what is the best model, and this is, by the way, developed by us, to master the fiscalization easier. So there are checklists, there are really point after point, the steps and guides, let's say, how to do it. We are sure, we know that this book will change the third part, the education. It will help that there are more educated people about fiscalization. The retailers will be able to include more people in own teams, which knows exactly the fiscalization, and software vendors as well. So now you have a big picture about Manifesto and how it was created in our head. Now we just decided to write it down. That's it.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Thank you for explanation. That explains our targets very well. So now let's move to the details of our manifesto. I will share it with you, and we will go through all points of our manifesto. So let's start with the first point. Retail is global. Compliance must be too. In a world where retailers expand across borders in days, compliance cannot remain stuck in fragmented national frameworks. Retail needs a unified, intelligent approach to legal compliance, one that scales with growth and adapts to change. Retailers don't fail because they lack ambition, they fail because they underestimate the complexity of local law.
Yes. Let me explain you very short at this point. So it's actually less complex than it sounds. The retail is trying to reach more and more customers. So this means the retailers are getting more and more international. But the laws are not developing. They are even going other way around, or the other direction. They are getting more complex. We are getting, or they are introducing, the governments are introducing the new laws. Suddenly you have e-invoicing additionally to e-commerce, to fiscalization. Then suddenly you have topics like e-commerce, social commerce, and so on. So it's getting very, very complex. We think that we need a kind of approach related to the compliance, which is making it international. So we cannot use it isolated anymore, so that every country has own law and has own differences. This is very difficult. So we want to push, let's say, a kind of unification of the laws. And there are certain movements in that direction. Certain governments are thinking about joining together, or maybe on a Europe level or European Union level or even other levels. And this is what we need. And we want to push in that direction. And if we are successful to unify the fiscalization, it will be great for everyone. If we are not successful to do it on the global level, we will do it at least in our products and in our services, so that whoever is working with us will have one solution for the global market and not many solutions for each market separately.
Okay, let's move on to the point 2. Compliance is not a burden, it's a strategic advantage. Smart compliance is more than legal hygiene, it's a competitive weapon. It builds trust, reduces operational risks, and make market entry faster. The brands that dominate tomorrow will be those who treat fiscalization and regulation as a pillar of strategy, not an afterthought.
Yes, this is even one of the major points in the book, which I published a couple of days ago. So actually, everybody, and I mean retailers and post-software vendors, think that fiscalization is something which is stopping them, which is, let's say, like a burden to do something, because they cannot be innovative, they cannot do this, they cannot do that, they have to slow down, and so on. Basically, they are right. But there are possibilities. But first, we have to accept the fact that fiscalization is there and you cannot move it. It's there. You cannot remove it. It's very difficult to remove it. Okay. If it's there, the only way that you can do in order to make it your advantage and not burden is to treat it differently. You have to work differently with that. You have to establish the processes in your company which are able to cover the fiscalization easier, faster, with less risks, and so on and so on. Not to react ad hoc. If you move to another country and suddenly you see, oh, that's fiscalization in that country, I have to do something. This is like ad hoc. But to have prepared teams, people, tools, processes, and so on, so that you are even not thinking about fiscalization. It's implemented by definition if you are moving into the new business model or if you are moving into the new country. So this is what the companies can do. How exactly? We described it, or I described it in the book, which I published a couple of days ago. So it's possible.
Okay, point 3 says one integration, every country, zero stress. The dream of every global retailer, a single integration that works in every market. This is not science fiction, it's middleware. Our mission is to abstract fiscal complexity into software, plug in once, expand endlessly.
Yeah, this is really something which is technically nowadays possible. A couple of years ago or many years ago, it was not possible. So there were ideas of creating the middleware for retailer to integrate different systems with each other. And this is a still huge topic. There are too many different systems in retail, and companies are trying, or retailers are trying to integrate each of them with each other. This is highly complex topic. We were successful in creating this kind of integration level in the fiscalization or for the fiscalization. And why? Because we focused just on fiscalization. We didn't try to implement customer loyalty, integrating with BI, and BI integrating with scales, and scales, 3 or 4 of different of them, integrating to something else, POS or ERP or whatever. So we just focus on fiscalization. And as we have so many different countries, this approach of offering one middleware, one solution that you have to integrate with once is working perfectly for all those countries which our companies and our competition as well are covering. So that's why this concept in the fiscalization, focused on the fiscalization, is working. But I have to say it's not working to 100% because there are still certain differences, let's say, between countries, which are sometimes influencing everything, and the retailers still have to do certain work in certain countries, although they have, for example, middleware that we provide or that somebody else provide. So this is possible, zero stress. I would like to say almost zero stress. So we have still to work on zero stress.
Yes. Okay. Fourth point is about changing laws. It says the laws are changing and you're already behind, from e-invoicing in Europe to real-time reporting in Asia and digital receipts in the Nordics. Regulation is evolving faster than most retailers can track. Waiting is not a strategy. Readiness is not optional. We must build systems and update themselves as laws change.
Sometimes it's like a fight. So that's why I told you in the beginning, manifesto is like telling you what are the points that we want to fight for. One of the points that we wanted to fight for is for the less changes, so that the governments are less changing the laws. But this is simply not possible because the world is moving, the new concepts are coming, and the new laws are always coming, and the old ones are evolving, changing. So this will always be like that. That's why we thought about the ways, how can we, let's say, at least make it transparent so that there is no foggy, blurry changes, but the very transparent changes that the retailers knows exactly what they have to do. And this is the point talking about that. So we want tools and processes which are making transparent what is changing, where, when, and how. That's it.
Yes, okay. Fifth point says standardization is the key to scalable fiscalization. The lack of standardization in how fiscalization is handled across countries is one of the biggest blockers to growth. It's time for a unified approach, a global blueprint that respects local specifics but builds on common standards. This is not only possible, it is necessary. We call on industry stakeholders and governments to collaborate on frameworks that simplify fiscal law implementation through technology.
Very difficult issue. And you maybe you know the Don Quixote. I'm sure you know it. He was fighting, let's say, the fights that was very difficult to win. Sometimes I feel in this point like that, because since maybe 10 or 15 years, we are trying to push the fiscalization to become a part of the standard, to define how it has to be done, and to that everybody agrees with that, very transparent. And we didn't manage it yet to have it as a standard. We are doing it together with other companies, which are world-leading retailers and POS software and POS hardware vendors and other peripherals or system vendors. And we all together are trying to do it, to define it, and to publish it. And we're on a good way, but it's a still long way to go. If I may just make small or digression, let's say, or explain why is it so important to have this kind of standards. Maybe some of our people in the audience will remember so-called UPOS time or time before UPOS. UPOS is standard which is defining how the peripherals, retail peripherals like scanners, cash drawers, and so on, have to be controlled and integrated into the POS software and hardware. And before the definition of the standard called UPOS, there was no standard at all. So the retailers were not able to change the scanner just like that, because one scanner was working with one system on one interface, and another scanner from another manufacturer was working on a different way. So there was no change per plug and play, more or less, or changing the configuration just to switch the scanner, hand scanner. It was not possible. Then the companies get together and defined UPOS standard. UPOS standard is defining how the communication between those devices should happen. And suddenly, every retailer or POS software or hardware vendor could exchange the hardware just like that. The dependency was away. So this is the major point and major advantage of the standards. You not depend on the certain manufacturers. Today, if you use the fiscal printer of Epson in Bulgaria, you integrate it, but you depend on that printer and that manufacturer. You cannot exchange it with another one because another one is having its own interface and own API or whatever. So we are fighting for the standard, which is publicly available, where everybody can contribute to that standard, read it, use it, and so on. And I think this is good for everyone.
Okay, thank you for explanation of this point. Let's move on to the next point, 6th point of our manifest. Retail law needs a voice. We are that voice. The retail tech conversation has been dominated by payments, logistics, and experience, but none of it works if compliance fails. We need a global dialogue between governments, retailers, and technology providers. We are here to lead it.
Yes. I want to be the voice for that because we have a lot of experiences, we have a lot of connections, and we have a lot of knowledge, let's say, about that on one side. On the other side, I think that it's absolutely needed to have somebody who is fighting, let's say, for the rights, let's call it like that, of retailers and POS software vendors in the matter of the fiscalization. Let me give you one example. If you think about e-invoicing, which is just a new topic, let's say, very near to the fiscalization, but different. You have at least, 200 different conferences about e-invoicing around the world. Every couple of weeks, I see kind of invitations, join us or come and see what is what is new in Asia, what is new in whatever. But there is not one conference about fiscalization. Nothing. Nobody's talking about that. But every retailer has to implement it in around 60 countries of the world. I think even more, between 60 and 100. In total, we have 200. So this means between 40 and 50% of the countries in the world are fiscal. And retailers have to do it. POS software vendors have to do it. So we need the voice of the fiscalization towards governments in different countries, it's also to help them to implement the laws on the better way so that the retailers can run it better and easier. Nowadays the governments are changing. They are maybe, most of them, let's say like that, don't want to have the laws anymore to have the foggy situation. They want the laws to be able to control the fraud, to see it transparently if somebody is doing fraud or not. So they have the target, which is simple and clear. And if we help them and not fight against them, it will be easier for everyone. And we want to be that voice.
Okay, and when we are talking about transparency, let's move on to the next point, which says transparency, trust, and technology will define the next era of retail. Retailers who prioritize transparency, powered by trustworthy, compliant tech, will earn customer loyalty and regulator support. It's time to build systems where compliance is not enforced but embedded.
Yes, we are living in a time which is very sensible, let's call it like that. So there are so many tensions around us, so many conflicts around us on the geopolitical level, all around, and even in many countries on the political or whatever level, economical level as well. It's the customers or consumers are anyhow already very insecure. What is happening now? Who is good? Who is bad? You cannot know that anymore, because you don't know if your source of information is reliable or not. You cannot ask Grok, please verify. Grok will tell you something, but only that what the developers of Grok told Grok to do, to tell. So that's why it's not that easy anymore. So this means the more we have the complex situation around us, the more transparency retailers need. Not just retailers, other companies as well. You have to be more transparent than yesterday because the situation around us is getting more complex. And this is what I think it's very important. So the retailers have to be more transparent, and we as a provider of the solutions have to help them in that. That's the mission or part of our mission.
Yes, okay. And we are coming to the last point of our manifest. And I just want to remind, if you want to, audience, if you want to share any thoughts or to leave any comment, you can type in chat. And let's move on to the next point. 8 point says, we exist to make retail simple, even when the law isn't. At Fiscal Solutions, we live where retail meets regulation. We write software that removes friction. We advise governments. We partner with the world's leading retailers. And above all, we believe that legal compliance should never stand in the way of great retail.
Yes, actually, it should happen, the legal part. It should happen like under the surface. So nobody should take care of that. You should be legally compliant, but it should not be in the focus from my point of view. The business should be in the focus. But this point is telling a lot. Let's say it's defining and describing how we develop our software, for example. Because if you decide to develop your own software solution, especially in the area of compliance, you have two choices that you can make on the beginning. The one choice is that you fulfill the requirements of the government. You have the law and you have to fulfill it. This is the choice that you have to do. You have to do that to fulfill these requirements, and then you can stop. Or you can continue and think about the ways how can you make the life of the people that are using that software easier. And this is a feature discussion. It's a not discussion. It's a not discussion, philosophical discussion. It's a really technical discussion. I will give you an example. There are so-called transaction counters, fiscal transaction counters. These are basically numbers which are numbering, calculating the number of the quantity of the transaction, fiscal transactions. Every POS system has usually transaction counter. But the transactions are not just fiscal transactions on the POS. They have a different or even more transactions than just fiscal transactions. Now, we as a middleware provider, we can treat it like this. We can say, okay, dear POS software, you do the counting of the transactions anyhow. Please make your counters however you want. It's up to you. It's your functionality. You can change a little bit something in your code and you can do it. Or I can implement the transaction counter in my solution. And I can tell the POS, you don't need to take care about that. I will take care of that. I will do it as a laws wants to do it, and you don't need to touch anything. So this means I can save the efforts on the side of the POS by taking some functionalities out of the POS, which could be also there, but it's better to be on my side. So this means in the area of, for example, data restoring the data, or in the case of error handling or similar situation, there are lots of such kind of features. So we decided to implement as much as possible features in the middleware so that POS don't need to do anything. This is the strategy. And this is exactly the point which we are describing in the 8th point of the manifesto. One point is to fulfill the requirements, but another point is to make the retail simpler, the life of the retailer simpler.
All right. Now we've gone through all the points, but before we move on, we have one comment, so I will show it now. How does the manifesto connect the philosophy of marketing with legal obligation of fiscalization? Is it more about compliance or about educating retailers?
This is a very good question. So basically, manifesto is defining the philosophy. So you can think about well-known manifestos like I mentioned, the art world and so on, defining how the artists, the new group of the artists, wants to change the world. It's the same here. So we are defining in this case, 8 points, which we think that will change the retail world. It's much more than the marketing. It's a way of living. It's what we believe. We believe, for example, that standardization is good. So this is one of the points, and we are fighting for that. Another point is we believe that transparency is important, and that's why we are fighting for that. And that's why it's a point in the manifesto. We believe that features of the solutions should be more than just fiscalization. That's why we are fighting for that, means implementing by ourselves. So this kind of document is defining the philosophy of what we are doing. So marketing is supporting that, of course, communicating that, and even, let's say, explaining that, and by that, educating the retailers about that, of course. But at the end, manifesto is a level above. Let's say it's the North Star, which is showing the direction, and marketing, business, and all other elements, areas of our companies are following that. I hope this was okay explanation, Vedrana. If not, just give me the sign.
Okay, thank you, Vedrana. So now, when we've gone through all the points, what should we actually do with the manifesto?
Yes, not write it and forget it.
Yes.
So first point, very important point, is to communicate it, because I think it's important that everybody knows that we have it, and that everybody understand what do we mean by those 8 points. If I say everyone, for me personally, it's related to the employees of the company. So everybody in the company should understand that we have this framework, this philosophy, but also every partner that we are cooperating with should understand that we are following these points and that we want to implement all those points, and the retailers as well. Now, let me give you a short example. If retailer don't think that the standardization is good, then we are probably wrong partner for that retailer, because we will push the standardization and the retailer will think, it's not good to have standards, then we will have a problem. So this was, by the way, related to the risks that I was talking in the beginning, and related to the reason or advantages, let's say, of the manifesto. So after communication, we will start living it. We already started, but even more living it in daily life, let's say.
Yes, okay, thank you for sharing that. We're slowly coming to the end of today's session, and before we close, we'd love to hear from you as well. So if you have any additional questions or thoughts, please feel free to type in chat. But before we end with this session, I have to ask what are the next steps for Fiscal Solutions?
As a company?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, what we did now with publishing the book, we covered the third element, which we think that it's major for making the fiscalization easier. Remember, first one was middleware to help to implement as many as possible fiscalization in one solution with one integration and so on. The second one was the source of the information. The idea was to create something where the retailer don't need to go into the country. They can do it and find all the documents on our page, even more than just official. And the third one was the education. We wanted to create a new way, an easier way, how do people are educated related to the fiscalization. That's why we created Udemy lectures. We created now this book, which we published. We included educational videos in all our products and so on and so on. So we are making the education easy. We will stop with that points, 3 points by now, and we will go now more into the countries. So we want to cover all 60 or 100 fiscal countries with our solution. We are not yet there. We are just covering half of them. But the next step will be to increase the coverage of the countries, of course. And then what is also very important, we are in parallel running innovations, how we call that. So it's a kind of incubator in our company. So we are trying to implement lots of different ideas. Some of them are very crazy. Some of them are totally not okay. Some of them are very good. And if you have 10, let's say, crazy ideas, at least one could be very interesting. And by that, we hope to push a little bit innovation, let's say, in the areas of the fiscalization. So this is the fourth point, let's say, what we are doing now.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So for us, the manifesto is not just about big words, it's about everyday actions. So this brings us to the end of today's live. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Darko, for great explanations today. Thank you for questions and engagement. So this is just the beginning of our journey with the manifesto, and we're excited to see where it takes us next. So have a great day, everyone, and see you next time.
Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. So no problem at all. Andjela, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Talk to you guys. Bye.
Bye.